Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a few comments on the current craziness. I want to be crystal clear about something. This is not about a Democratic thing, a Republican thing, a conservative thing, a liberal thing, a libertarian thing, or what have you. Our democracy is sick and it's infested by corruption. That corruption is endemic. And so I want to offer helpful ways to think about the problem of corruption and the problems we face, because that's what we do at our nonprofit. We expose corruption, mostly academic corruption, plagiarism, ideological capture, what have you. But this is a different type of corruption. This is political corruption at the highest levels. So we're going to play some clips and I'm going to analyze these and I'm going to suggest better ways of thinking about things. Okay, here's the first clip. I'm not going to mention the man's name. Who told Kamala Harris it was a good idea to explain economics to the press after downing an entire handle of vodka? Okay, Reed, play some of this clip if you don't mind.
You unveiled your economic policies last week.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you're going to pay for those? And can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%.
So, look, there are many, many legitimate reasons to criticize her, to criticize Trump, to criticize RFK. Speculating that she's a drunkard is not helpful. It does not contribute to discourse, and it makes people seem like ideological partisan hacks. I put a tweet up about something. I remember when Obama wore a tan suit, people lost their minds. And when Trump liked his steak well done, people lost their minds about that as well. These are just not legitimate reasons to criticize someone. You should be criticizing somebody on the basis of their policies, how much they cost, how they're going to implement them. The fact that I would even have to sit here saying this, I don't know if it's engagement farming, why people do this, or they just have to have their candidate win, so they criticize the other and they make up these spurious charges. I don't know. But if you want to criticize, there's a lot of reasons to criticize her. Chief among those is that she hasn't, I mean, I can't even fathom this. I don't see how you can run for president without having policy proposals. I mean, you could joke around with your friends about this, but these are not legitimate points. What are you going to do? How are you going to accomplish it? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Who's it going to hurt? How are you going to balance the budgets or what have you? What are you going to pull from funding to pay for this? These are legitimate questions, and these are questions should be asked. But apparently we have an electorate who is either incapable of doing this, or it's so partisan right now. People are just going to the "she's a drunk" thing. All right, let's go to the next thing I want to mention. So this has been circulating, and this should not be circulating. This is from Clown World. I think they have like 2.6 million X followers on X, formerly Twitter. Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, has been accused of manipulating taxpayer funds to funnel billions of dollars to left-wing groups and trial lawyers during his time in the Obama administration. West, who is married to Kamala's sister, was involved in the 2014 mortgage settlement, where he allegedly redirected a significant portion of the funds to Democratic allies instead of compensating victims. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Accused of and allegedly. Anybody can allege anything. I can allege that, Reed stuck a pineapple in his ear. My alleging or anybody's alleging or a bunch of people alleging something doesn't mean anything. We have a system in which we adjudicate these claims if they're illegal through the court system. You alleging something is tantamount to it's nothing. It means nothing. So, okay, this is not a reason to criticize. This is partisanship. This is not thinking clearly. Criticize people on their policies, not because what someone's brother-in-law allegedly did. This just makes you an unserious person. It makes you a partisan hack. It makes you someone who's not concerned about truth. It makes you someone who's not concerned about evidence. So that's just a shameful. It's terrible for our democracy. You shouldn't be doing that, period. Okay, so let's move on to that, lest anybody think that I'm myself being partisan in these criticisms. Let's move on to another type of corruption. Okay, so if you haven't seen this, you should. And again, this is not a partisan thing. This is not a Trump supporting thing. This is not a Harris supporting thing. This is about corruption. That's why we're talking about this. And in this extraordinary speech by RFK, he lays out corruption. I think the speech is fascinating for a number of reasons, but he speaks on the future of his campaign, and eventually he endorses Trump. Now, let's drill down on this a little bit for some of his interviews. Go ahead, Reed.
They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days.
We've been listening to independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from Phoenix outlining what led him to his quixotic quest for the White House to now dropping out and relinquishing the title of Democrat. He had a series of...
Okay, this is astonishing. Normally what would be astonishing in something, there are layers of astonishment here. Normally what would be something astonishing is that someone running for office, everything is scripted. Like he or she does not debate, does not have unscripted conversations, does not, like, for example, Trump was on Musk's platform X and they had a conversation. I don't understand how anybody can face a leader in the world stage. I don't even understand how anybody could. I mean, the whole thing is, there are just layers of insanity to this. But and normally that's what we would talk about here. But this interrupting him now, okay, so I know there's someone saying, okay, well, this isn't a conspiracy. So my brain is not wired to see conspiracies. Either this is it's not even adequate. It's just a kind of blindness. It just blows my mind that you would talk over somebody when they're criticizing the party that people have affiliated you with, saying that you're an organ of the Democratic Party, and you're muting his criticism. That just lends to the belief that you are an ideologue and that your station is primarily ideological, which obviously it is. But it could be that this person is just profoundly ignorant, and or it could be that the whole thing is so ideologically captured that they didn't want anybody to listen to the end. But either way, this is a disgrace. This is just disgraceful. And it doesn't matter who the person is who's speaking up there. You could easily do that commentary at the end. And if, you could put in the chyron in the bottom, you could say, which they did, he speaks on the future of his campaign, or you could do an update. You don't have to interrupt him in his speech. To me, it's conspicuously ideological and partisan. And again, I think that's what we've seen in the legacy media. They're just ideologically captured, and the reporters are ideologically captured. And we'll see another example of that. People have done that to me when they've recorded, when I've done interviews. It's just conspicuously partisan. They have an agenda. They're not trying to find truth. They're not really trying to get an interview. They're trying to push a narrative. Okay, read next clip.
When I watched the tape, I found odd because of all of the heated rhetoric. And that is that after he was hit, former President Trump got up and said, fight, fight, fight. I think what we're hearing from people is that's not the message that we want to be sending right now. We want to tamp it down.
Unbelievable. Like, is it that these people are so... It's not even tone deaf to the electorate. I'm trying to think of a politic way to say, are they just all morons? The man was just literally shot. He just literally shot, and that's why she's criticizing him? Are you kidding me? I don't know. Is it just like a crisis of profound ignorance that's metastasized throughout the population? Are people just, I just don't remember anything like this growing up. I mean, that's just such a profoundly ignorant thing to say. But if it's not ignorant, then it's just ideological. They're just pushing a narrative. I mean, it's probably a combination of both, but and that's the Hanlon's razor thing. Why attribute to malice what you could attribute to incompetence or stupidity? But it's a really remarkable homogenous media narrative. It's really a univocal media narrative. It's just so obvious to anybody who pays attention for 5 seconds. And most of the legacy media is complicit in this, if not explicitly on board. NPR is probably the worst of the worst. And the last time I read, they have the highest rates of voting among their listeners. I mean, this is just shameful. This is end of empire stuff. This is it. This is what happens at the end of empire, right here. Okay, here's another important clip. My buddy Konstantin Kisin from the UK is being interviewed by an NBC journalist. It doesn't matter what the journalist's name is. In fact, it's, as he says in the beginning of the video, he doesn't want the guy dogpiled. And I don't want anybody to dogpile this guy. I don't want anybody to do angry tweets or dox him or anything. You should listen to this in its entirety. This is not a man seeking the truth. This is a person who is explicitly, it's not even that he's trying to have a gotcha. He has a very distinct ideological frame from which he's operating, and he's trying to capture and make Konstantin say things that, I mean, it's just an extraordinary interview. We're going to play a clip from this, but it's a great example of ideological reporting and how that manifests in the kind of reporting they do. Okay, Reed.
Speaking about the recent violence in the UK, most of it was perpetrated by anti-immigrant forces. Should we be more concerned about violence on their by them, or more concerned about violence by immigrants?
I do not understand why you keep framing this as immigrants.
Migration, refugees. No.
The violence was not when I said there were gangs on the street with knives attacking people, it was not Portuguese people or Ukrainians or Hong Kongers. Most of those people were British born. They're not immigrants.
So I guess my question is,
okay, pause it. I mean, you really should listen to the interview. It's a disgrace. All of these things are a disgrace. Everything that we've listened to today, the right wing attacks on, Harris as being a drunkard with no evidence whatsoever. She's probably just an ignoramus, or she's definitely an ignoramus, and she's an nincompoop. But whether she's a drunkard or not is different. It's more legitimate to criticize her intellectual ability, although I don't even think that in this context, that's, if you want to make a criticism in general, it's better to criticize specific policies, as I mentioned before. There's nothing wrong with saying that someone's not smart enough, or that, RFK or Vivek or who have you, or Clinton are smarter than the existing. That's fine. It's not a criticism. It's more of an assertion. So corruption is the main theme. It's the corruption that RFK talks about in his talk. It's the corruption from individual reporters who have been ideologically captured, who work for media organs who are ideologically captured, who get their degrees from universities that are ideologically captured. So the whole system is being contaminated by ideological capture. And it's swaying the mission of these institutions from finding the truth to pushing an agenda and narrative so that their person can get into office, so they can enact their policies. This is not the way that a healthy democracy should function. We should be interested in things that are true. We should be asking people why they believe things. What is your best evidence for that? What would it take to change your mind about policy X, Y, or Z? Or what about this policy? We don't have any of that. We don't have any of that. And I'm deeply concerned about our democracy. I'm deeply concerned about the kinds of citizens we've made in this country and we are continuing to make in this country, in part due to the ideological capture of teacher training institutions. So today's little rambling was on a heavier note, but I think it's important. And I think it's things that we should reflect on. And I think we should hold our leaders accountable, not for how they like their steak done or what color they like their suits, or if we think that they're drinking or they're stoned or what have you. We need to hold people accountable, our leaders accountable for their policy positions. So if you want to know why we have the current crop of leaders, all you need to do is look in the mirror. It's because we didn't demand enough. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This falls under the umbrella of my nonprofit, National Progress Alliance. Your generous donations keep us going and help fuel content like this. We truly appreciate your support. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.